everybody else except Panasonic had released the 8K full-frame mirrorless camera. Of course, inevitably, it is inevitable that Panasonic will release the 8K full-frame mirrorless camera, and this is the cheapest 8K full-frame mirrorless camera ever. And I'm talking about comparing the new release price compared to current other model discount price. This is still the cheapest. Also 5.8K ProRes RAW, and also this app. The first time ever I found an app from a camera manufacturer actually great, actually useful. Now first, let's talk about one thing that's really I didn't expect it at all. Now this has 44 megapixel is not actually that really super high these days, but it's still a high resolution camera. And then it got a high res mode that combines 8 shots into one, up to 117 megapixel. And it had handheld mode as well. It doesn't have to be on the tripod. But the thing that I really don't expect is 40 fps burst RAW. 40 fps, 44 megapixel burst. But maybe you remember the Z9. The Z9 actually do much faster, isn't it? 120 fps continuous burst. But actually, that is limited to 11 fps. 11 megapixel JPEG. If you want to do raw continuous burst on Z9, that is actually just 20 fps. Just. If you compare to the Canon R1, the Canon R1 actually do raw burst in 40 fps. So this is the same as this, but that is a 24 megapixel camera. This is 44 megapixel, and it even has 1.5 second pre-burst. That's one big but though. The buffer size, I can just show you right now. Oh, it's really great, 40 fps. Oh, that's it. Maybe you say, oh well, you don't always have to do over 2 seconds of burst. Usually, just most of the time you just like short burst. But when you keep doing short bursts, it will still fill up the buffer. And we tried it. I tried it with Kai. You can check it out on the screen here. Check his review. After this review,
it's writing. It's those kind of cameras where you have to say, hold on a minute, hold on, my buffer's full.
I mean, it is quite impressive that within that 2 seconds, you got 70 shots of 44 megapixel photos. But still, in practical, another problem is that between the 40 fps electronic shutter and the 10 fps mechanical shutter, nothing in between. So you can't just dial back it a little bit. Oh, I want 20 fps, maybe it do better with the buffer. No. They mentioned that the autofocusing is better than before. I mean, every camera from any other brand would say that, oh, whenever there's new camera, oh, it's a better autofocusing. And the subject recognition, it is actually the same amount of things to recognize, like human, animal, car, motorcycle, bike, train, airplane. Like me and Kai tried the airplane recognition, that it actually recognizes drone as well, that actually works pretty well. Too bad the tracking mode is still very Panasonic. As always, Panasonic is really good at video, and it is a lot to cover about this camera, not just the 8K. Now I want to talk about the stabilization first. Panasonic always have the best in-body stabilization. This one got like 8-stop in-body stabilization, but this time there's something new as well. There is a Cropless EIS. A Cropless EIS. Why I do that? Because as I try it, it doesn't actually do stabilization. Electronic stabilization, it always is that it crop in a little bit, and then it just use different parts of the sensor to do stabilization. So it has to crop in. So now it had cropless electronic stabilization doesn't make sense at all because it don't actually do stabilization, but it do one thing really great is lens distortion. They call it perspective correction. Was a perspective thing. I mentioned it before, especially when the GH5 announced it, people find out the GH5 really stable in stabilization, brilliant, but then the corners could warp a little bit. And then people think that is there something wrong with the stabilization? Is there some bug or whatever? Actually, that wobbling is just the lens distortion. So since the G9 Mark II, they have perspective correction. If you turn on EIS, it also corrects those wobbling as well. Works really well. Despite the confusing name that they choose to use, it's not the stabilization at all. But it is a great thing because before that, I don't use that because I'm a purist. I don't want it to crop in. So I don't use electronic stabilization. But this, now you can have the in-body stabilization and turns on the cropless EIS, which doesn't crop, but it electronically corrects those distortions. I will have that turns on all the time. So to talk about the 8K capability, the 8K, it got 8K, 8.1K, it goes 16 by 9, 17 by 9. And actually later with a firmware update, they will release 8.1K open gauge as well. Currently, it's only 6.4K has open gauge. I'm also curious, will it be actually sharper to resize the 8K into 4K compared to S5 Mark II 6K into 4K? You can try watch this in computer full screen. I don't think they are any different. Actually, what surprised me is the low light performance. For the S1RII Mark II, the high base ISO for vlog is 1000. So at ISO 2000, it has a slight edge over S5 Mark II because the high base ISO for S5 Mark II X is ISO 4000. So now in ISO 4000, the S5 Mark II X is at this high base ISO, but still, they look really similar. And the S1RII Mark II is on 2 stops above its high base ISO. The good thing about Panasonic is that even they have an 8K camera, they still provide 6K. On this instant, it is 6.4K. When I reviewed the Canon R5 years ago, I actually mentioned I really hope that they have a 5K or 6K option because this only provides 4K and 8K. Because 8K for me is quite overkill. That's not how many people actually have to use 8K footage. Most people shoot 8K and then they just resize it into 4K. Well, I like to use, for example, I like to use 6K as well because I can crop in post-production. It's great. But then 8K, I think is quite overkill. The file size will be large and then you need a really fast computer to edit them. So I think 6K is actually a really good middle ground. And I'm glad that they still provide you 6.4K, 8.5K, ProRes. Now, another great news is that they provide ProRes and ProRes RAW. But however, there's always a however with this camera. It only do 5.8K ProRes, not 8K. And yeah, I mean, I mentioned that 8K is a little bit overkill, but so yeah, it got 5.8K, yeah. But the way according to our test, any video format over 25 or 30p, it will have a slight crop. Especially Panasonic mentioned that the 4K 120 has full area video. I don't know what that exactly means. There is a slight crop from the full width of the sensor. It is a really slight crop, I give you that. Much better than before that any Panasonic doing 50-60p used to have APS-C crop. Yet another thing, I mentioned there's a lot of cover. False color. For the first time, false color available on Panasonic mirrorless camera, and it is great. Another thing, it has the new CineLike A2. It's supposed to look like another cinema camera that starts with A. Now, to me, they look really, really similar. I guess it's only useful for people who use this as a B camera beside an RV. Also, it's about external SSD shooting, just like the S5 Mark II X. It from new is already support. Especially, I got this new toy from Lex. This is really great. This is an SSD. plug in there and shoot into this SSD, should ProRes or whatever H.265. After that, I just plug this directly into my computer or even my iPad. But there is one but, there's another but for this camera, a lot of buts. If you shoot like this, you are limited to shooting 4K, no matter it is ProRes or H.265. If you want to shoot higher than 4K, you need to get the DC coupling. So you have to use DC power or you have to use the power grip. Maybe there's a burden for having a 44 megapixel sensor. Now, if you're still watching at this point, you're really into video shooting. And this sponsor is really great for you, Storyblocks. It's not just a stock video site because it got stock video, photo, animation, After Effects, Adobe, whatever, Final Cut Pro plugin, music, sound effect. It's just one site that have everything. You know, we have to get all those. Who want to manage like 5-6 different accounts, especially if you who want to pay different sites. Oh, I pay for video, pay for photo, pay for music. It adds up, it gets expensive. But with Storyblocks, it's just one account, one login, one subscription. You got unlimited download of all the media that you need. How about just check it out yourself? Use the link in the description down below or the QR code here. And this is the best way to support this channel. So thank you very much. Now let's look at the camera body of the S1RII Mark II. This is a lot smaller than the original S1R, the original. Because the original one is as big as the SLR. This is much smaller. And this is like 90-something% the same as the S5 Mark II. What's the few percentage difference is that the grip is actually a little bit better. It's actually like 2 to 3 millimeters around thicker. So when I pick it up, I actually can tell that this actually feels better than the S5 Mark II. But this is a little bit heavier, 50 grams heavier. Doesn't sound much, but I can tell because I'm used to the S5 Mark II. When I pick this up, I already like, oh, this is a little bit heavier. Now you see that I'm not putting any protection on the sensor because now, just like Canon, it got this sensor cover as well. You can actually choose to have this on or off in the menu system. Okay, now one thing really great about the S5 Mark II is the cooling fan, and this has it as well. Quite similar to the S5 Mark II. It got the vents here, on here, and then on here as well. So this is really a great design because it doesn't, even with a cooling fan, it doesn't make the camera much bigger. Now there are a lot of other improvements as well. Just like the GH7, you got another record button here, and now you have CineLike. Finally got CineLike. There's one in front, one at the back. Another huge improvement is this screen. So if flip out and tilt up, this is brilliant. When I'm shooting with Kai, when I'm shooting Kai's video, I use this quite a lot. So you can flip up really quickly, rather than the flip screen that if you want to tilt up, you have to flip out and do that. This also means that it won't block any ports. For example, if you plug in a USB for power and you want to use a flip screen, you can, and it won't block any of the ports. Talking about the ports, even the ports got a little bit of improvement. Now it got separate flap for each ports like HDMI, USB, mic, and headphone. So that if, for example, if you are only going to use the USB and then it got a little bit of drizzle, you're not exposing the HDMI port. As you can see, it clicked a little bit here. It stayed there when you open it like that. Unlike the S5 Mark II, actually quite annoying that sometimes it just do that. Sometimes just, oh, come on. It's just, curiously, the original S5 actually got this click on the flaps. It's gone on the S5 Mark II and then it's back on the S1RII Mark II for some reason. They realize it's actually a good thing. Another improvement there is this still and video and SNQ switch. This is really great because before that, it is all on the mode dial. So when you choose the video mode, you have to change it between, like for example, S mode or M mode on the screen. But this, you just switch it to video mode and then choose whatever mode you want to use here. Now, because this camera should ProRes, it has to use CFexpress card. Really expensive. The good 2 card slot, the other card is SD card. So you have a mix of SD and CFexpress. Actually, I personally find this quite annoying. When you shoot something that doesn't allow SD card, that means you can't have 2 cards. You can't record to 2 cards at the same time. But what if I never shoot ProRes or whatever? Then you still have to buy CFexpress to make use of the 2 card slots. I always find this just a little bit annoying. There's also this new smartphone app called Lumix Flow. Super simple, just connect with USB. That's it, you can use your phone as a view monitor. You got all the exposure aid, control the shutter speed, aperture ISO, and start and stop recording. It's like the first time ever camera manufacturer get it right. And just like S5 Mark II X, it has built-in live stream capability. With a Wi-Fi or phone tether, it can live stream without a computer. As I mentioned at the beginning, this is the cheapest 8K full-frame mirrorless camera. And if you like, what was the other 8K shooting mirrorless camera? If you think about the Canon R5 Mark II, that's on another level. I mean, on the price, it's pretty expensive. But if you compare to Nikon Z8, more expensive than this, Sony A7R Mark V, still more expensive than this. And I'm comparing to those cameras' current discounted price, not when they were new. And this is new. Should I compare to the Canon R5 because it's cheaper than this? But it is a 4-year-old camera, so I think it's not fair to compare to this. Now, only the Fujifilm X-H2 that shoots 8K and quite a lot cheaper than this, but that is not full frame, that's APS-C size sensor camera. Now, what do I think about this camera? Personally, when I'm shooting with this, I like it a lot because all the improvement. But to be honest, comparing this to my S5 Mark II, the S5 Mark II is still enough for me, and it's a little bit lighter as well. And I don't need the ProRes capability of this camera. I don't need to do special effect, that kind of thing. But some new feature, I think Panasonic usually quite good at putting this new feature back into older camera. Now, what I really want is the false color. As I mentioned, it's really great. And the Cropless perspective correction is not EIS. It doesn't stabilize anything. I hope they would add it back to S5 Mark II, just like they add this perspective correction from G9 Mark II to this. Still, this is a really great true hybrid Panasonic Lumix S mirrorless camera. 8K, unbelievably fast burst. I mean, if you need it, you need it.